exaggerated movements, then turn his head to the stands and smile broadly with his white, even teeth. Full of vitality. The emotions of youth are always fervent and hard to hide, making one recall the first meeting. Although I knew I wasn't worthy of that light, I still couldn't help but be greedy again and again. That's why I refused to go home, changed my phone number, and cut off all contact with my family. Until he found me in the dormitory area behind the school. A week before graduation, Jessica called me. She came to Tianjin to visit my parents and was currently near the school. I went with her, and as soon as I arrived, I recognized my parents standing there. Xiaojing. My mother's joy quickly turned into anger. You're living so comfortably, even dating, and you don't care about your family. I was chilled to the bone. They knew about Trang Cam's existence. They had been there for a few days but hadn't looked for me. What exactly were they planning? I went to the hotel where they were staying. Seeing Chen Luan lying on the bed, feigning death, I expressionlessly watched my parents play their charade step by step. Chen Luan had caused trouble again, getting involved in debt. Interest compounded, and there was no way to pay it off. The creditors had come to demand payment. Parents see that kid's family is well off. You pretend to be pregnant and tell him to help your brother pay off the debt. I already broke up with him. No. Quickly apologize to him, otherwise. What will happen to your brother? What will happen? Just let it be. Chen Luan handed me his phone, and my mother forced me to find a way to resolve the pile of debts. I took the phone to check and found that they were involved in several gambling apps, which led to them being pulled into loan shark debt. Just as I was about to log out, QQ received a message. Group 1, I can't live anymore. I've been suppressed for too long. I want to die. She put that in a group of anti-depression people. I asked and found out that this account was bought by Chen Luan, and it contained many game items specifically for playing. That group belonged to the previous owner. Chen Luan was too lazy to delete his friends in it. The account and password were saved in the notes. I didn't show any emotion, silently deleted the chat frame, returned the phone to him and said directly, I broke up, but he will still help pay off the debt. I will go home with him to resolve this matter. They agreed and even gave my number to the creditor. I returned to the dormitory. I didn't sleep all night. I waited until dawn, making sure Chen Luan was asleep, before using my phone to log into that QQ account. I reread the group chat, finding the conversation from that time. Why do you want to die? He was still awake, almost immediately answering, I can't live anymore. The college entrance exam results will be out in a few days. I did terribly. My parents will beat me to death. The original plan was vague, but it gradually became clear. Since he wanted to die anyway, it wouldn't be bad if I helped him. I chatted with him for a long time, from cutting wrists to jumping off a building, even helping him choose the time to commit suicide. This weekend, go to the rooftop behind the school. Your parents put so much pressure on you. It's all the teacher's fault. You have to teach him a lesson. My words were gentle, gradually luring him to his death. Then I pretended to carelessly reveal my home address. To manipulate others doesn't require much. You just need to be like me, someone with severe psychological defects. That's the easiest target to manipulate. Chen Luan would later receive a statement. But because it was an account he bought, he only knew to blame the seller and then tried to change the password. I bought a plane ticket, packed my luggage, got my graduation certificate. A week was enough for me to arrange everything. It's just that I didn't dare to face Trang Cam. So, I could only send him a breakup message, meet him at the airport and say goodbye, completely cutting off contact. After returning home, I used all my savings to pay off that debt but said nothing to my family. They were always anxious, while I was calm as if nothing had happened. Everything remained peaceful. Until June 15th, when I read the news that the child had died. Strange people wearing baseball caps began to appear subtly around the residential area. Plainclothes police officers investigating usually wear hats to cover their faces to avoid retaliation and implicating their relatives. The police came to find me, so I staged the drama of running away due to debt and finding a rented house to hide in. I deliberately left no clear traces, but at the same time, I subtly created the impression that I was fleeing because I was afraid of the crime. There was one more thing. I deliberately had Chen Luan go out to find a tenant so that the house would be rented out. I knew he would be arrested sooner or later, but I didn't expect the child's parents to cause such a commotion, insisting that the school compensate them, preventing the police department from continuing the investigation. Chen Luan thus escaped for a while. I had originally intended to stay holed up in the rented house, waiting until Chen Luan was arrested. Unexpectedly, the landlord suddenly showed up, making him panic and almost scare him to death. He was afraid of being discovered by the creditors, so he dragged me to flee to a more distant place. Although I was worried that the police would find Chen Luan, I was temporarily relieved. I didn't expect him to come looking for me. Jessica ran to me in a pathetic state, reporting that Trang Cam was looking for me. That night, to escape harassment from her stepbrother, she casually latched onto a man, only to be pursued and almost killed by him. Fortunately, Trang Cam came to save her, and the matter even escalated to the police station. She told me to go see Trang Cam. I refused, asking her to persuade him to go home. She looked at me for a while and then said, "You're not worthy." She liked Trang Cam. I wasn't surprised by that. After all, people like me, buried in the mud, always crave light. I agreed to perform this play with Chen Luan and my parents, fleeing to Tongliang. But unexpectedly, Chen Luan was quickly arrested. Moreover, he was the one who came looking for me. As soon as Chen Luan entered the police station, my parents forced me to take the blame. The situation was very serious, but the police officer named Mark was too smart. He pretended to only arrest Chen Luan for investigation and even staged an interrogation. I knew he wanted me to confess everything to prevent Trang Cam from being hurt even more. If I had participated in the interrogation, he wouldn't have acted like that. He knew very well that only a truly foolish person would believe it all was real. He didn't arrest me immediately because the evidence was not complete. But I knew it was only a matter of time before I was arrested. When I sat in the taxi with Trang Cam, Mark stood outside, his deep gaze fixed on me. When Trang Cam hugged me at that moment, I became greedy. I thought I could cover up everything, return to Tianjin with him, and crawl out of that muddy swamp. But he was still looking at me, so I knocked him unconscious. I'd rather have him be deceived by me than see him look at me despairingly, his eyes full of disappointment. He wasn't like me. I knew that from the beginning. It's a pity that in the end it still turned out like this. Ultimately, it was because I was too greedy. In 2018, Ethan, plunged into a deep depression. I quit my job for treatment and rest. My savings barely enough to last a few months. Returning home was not an option, and I'd cut off all contact with friends. During that time, I felt like an utter failure. I couldn't find a reason to live, often standing by the window, moments away from jumping. Then one day, a new tenant moved into the attic apartment on my floor. My rented house was a shared living space, with the top floor being the attic. The landlord mentioned 2 male tenants downstairs and 2 attic rooms. Previously, one was occupied by a girl, and my room had just been re-rented. That day, while doing laundry, I unexpectedly saw the new girl emerging from her shower. She wore a white sheer dress, her hair still wet, falling disheveled yet alluringly over her shoulders. She was incredibly beautiful. She turned and smiled at me. "Hi, I'm Lila." I don't know why, but in that instant, a lurking desire suddenly surged within me. Whenever she showered, I'd deliberately step out of my room, pretending to go for a casual stroll. The bathroom light would glow, and the sound of running water would echo. I'd turn to look, noticing her door wasn't fully closed, just ajar. The house was strangely quiet. The programmer guy on my floor usually worked late and then played games with headphones on. The other girl in the attic room, as usual, seemed to be working overtime. As dark thoughts began to swirl, I returned to my room, took off my jacket, and tiptoed up the stairs. No sound perfect. The water still ran steadily in the bathroom. Step by step, I silently crept towards her door. Gently, I pushed the door open, and a fresh, clean scent wafted out with the air current. Fearing detection, I immediately slipped inside, keeping the door precisely as it was, not daring to shift it even slightly. Her room was impeccably tidy. In the far corner sat a double bed, covered with white sheets. On the bed lay a few clean clothes, all white, ready for her to change into. She truly loved white. I swallowed hard, trying to suppress my urges. To the left was a window, with a table beneath it. To the right was an empty space, leading further into a small storage room with large wardrobes. My eyes scanned around and then abruptly halted. On her bedside table was a photo of her with another man. There was no denying it. In that moment, my mind became utterly distorted. Seeing the scene before me, a wave of anger and jealousy washed over me. It was as if everything that belonged to me had been usurped by someone else. I walked step by step to her bed, leaning close, almost touching her pillow. The scent of her hair still lingered, permeating my nostrils, making my heart pound. A thrilling, guilty excitement surged through my body like a toxic heat. Suddenly, from downstairs, I heard a door open, followed by the sound of slippers on the stairs. What? How could she have showered so quickly? Panicked, I didn't know what to do. I immediately stood up, looking around. There was only one suitable place to hide, under the bed. Without hesitation, I lay flat and squeezed myself in. Just in time, the door opened, and her soft, pale feet entered my view. The underside of the bed was dusty, and the disturbed dust made me sneeze loudly. I quickly brought my hand to my mouth, but it was too late. I tried to suppress a slight cough in my throat. Fortunately, at that exact moment, the hairdryer roared to life, completely masking my sound. How lucky, truly lucky. Half the night, my body lay cramped under the bed for too long, growing numb in waves. It wasn't until I heard soft snoring that I slowly crawled out from under the bed. The room was pitch black. I pulled back the curtain a little, and moonlight spilled onto the bed, illuminating Lila's face. She lay on her side, her ear, her nose bridge, her eyelashes, all so delicately sculpted. Perhaps my mind was clouded by something, but I didn't leave. Instead, I sat down on the edge of the bed, silently watching her sleep. It was summer, and she was only covered by a thin blanket over her stomach. The next morning, I don't know how much time had passed, but I finally returned to my room. Looking at the box of antidepressants on my table, for the first time, I felt I might not need them anymore. It was as if something new was truly making me alive. On the third day, when she went to shower again, I snuck back into her room. Sure enough, she never locked her door when she showered. The room key still hung in its usual spot. She showered every day, and I took advantage of each time, quietly hiding in her room, and then leaving in the middle of the night to continue watching her sleep. I had ordered an item I'd seen on dark forums, hoping it would arrive soon. A few weeks later, at noon, I received a notification that my package would be delivered today. I opened my phone to check the delivery information, but the first thing that caught my eye was a strange message. "I know what you're doing. Hee hee." The moment I read it, a chill ran down my spine. Who was it? Was it the guy on the same floor or one of the neighbors? Damn it, I need to be more careful. I held my phone, walking towards the stairs, and called the number that sent the message, but no sound came from any of the rooms. "The number you have dialed is currently busy. Please try again later." Beep. The call was cut. In the late afternoon, my package arrived. Lila returned from work as usual and went to shower. I stayed in my room, filled with unease. I didn't dare go tonight. Another week passed, and time seemed to shorten, many days compressed into a single afternoon. I began to sink deep into depression again. For days, I only ate a few packets of instant noodles, just enough to survive, and only reluctantly got up for water when I was too thirsty. Every night brought endless insomnia, and during the day I was dazed, my mind hazy as if sleepwalking. The next day, as I was cooking something in the kitchen, the skinny guy from the room next door came out to get a drink from the fridge. He looked at me and asked, Hey, are you okay? You look terrible. I'm fine, I mumbled. I looked in the mirror, seeing the dark circles under my eyes and my rough skin. The dark thoughts in my head flared up again. I realized I had turned into a creature living on a poisonous diet of desire. As night fell, Lila went to shower again. I opened my door slightly, silently observing through the narrow gap. She still wore that white sheer dress, slowly ascending to the attic. Her slender legs and smooth pink feet made me imagine all sorts of things uncontrollably. I once again ascended the stairs, but this time more cautiously. I continuously confirmed no one was watching before entering her room and crawling under the bed. This time, I noticed the underside of the bed was very clean, almost dust-free, as if someone had thoroughly cleaned it. Soon after, the door opened. I secretly peeked out and immediately saw a pair of men's shoes, obviously a man's. He walked to the bed, sat down, took off his shoes, and gently kicked them right next to me. He stood up, barefoot, and went to a hidden corner I couldn't see. Based on the sounds, he seemed to be undressing. Not long after, his bare feet reappeared. Then, a series of intense sounds erupted, and two pairs of legs moved closer to the bed. That night, everything made me gasp for breath, suffocating. It wasn't until midnight that I quietly crawled out from under the bed. I pulled the curtain open a little, and faint moonlight illuminated the face of the man lying next to Lila. He had a large, bulbous nose like garlic, full of pimples and narrow eyes. A pair of black-rimmed glasses rested on his pillow. Could a man like that be worthy of her? My hands instinctively rose slightly, and the thought of strangling him flashed through my mind. Whoa. What was I thinking? I returned to my room. Before I could turn on the light, my phone screen lit up with a message notification. I didn't turn on the light, just walked over and picked it up. On the screen was a clear message. "You've been exposed, haven't you?" accompanied by a smiling emoji. I rushed out of my room, pushing the door open, only to see the communal area completely dark, without a single speck of light. Who sent it? The next day, I woke up very early, but my whole body still felt exhausted and drained. I didn't leave my room all day. My heating system connected to Lila's room. Although the soundproofing was good, I occasionally heard fragmented sounds echoing from the floor above. And that feeling of humiliation spread little by little within me. I felt utterly exasperated, almost unbearable. Tonight, I had even thought about sneaking into her room and choking that man. That message, its very existence, made my mind uncontrollably chaotic. A few days later, I was lying in my room when I heard urgent knocking. Opened the door. It was a thin man, wearing black-rimmed glasses, neatly dressed, polite in appearance, but carrying a certain coldness. The very man who had been next to Lila that night. He smiled at me. "Hi, can I borrow some laundry detergent?" Froze. "Do we know each other? I just moved in with my girlfriend." As he said that, a smile spread across his face, but I felt my entire body tense up like a guitar string. After putting away his clothes, he asked again, "Oh, by the way, where do people usually dump trash around here?" Just take it to the Southgate trash station or leave it outside the door for now. You can take it when you go out." "Thanks." With that, he went upstairs to get a trash bag and then closed the door, seemingly having left. Perhaps out of an inexplicable curiosity, I opened my door and looked into the hallway. No one was there. I bent down to look at the trash bag he had left and was shocked. Inside were used condoms. My mind reeled. Lila, my goddess, doing that with a man like him. The rage within me grew more and more intense. Tonight I must do something. Damn it. In the late afternoon I was dozing, my routine completely inverted, when a loud crash jolted me awake. Immediately after, there were many screams. I rushed to the window and looked down. The man had fallen backward, straight into the apartment complex's flower bed. I hurriedly ran downstairs. In just a few minutes, a large crowd had gathered. I pushed through the crowd and saw his face covered in blood, almost unrecognizable. But it was indeed the man who had come to see me that morning. Disperse. Disperse. 3 police officers entered the scene and began asking if anyone knew the victim. I raised my hand. They asked for the victim's name. I replied that I only knew his face, not his name. Have you noticed anything unusual about him recently? I answered that I wasn't very close to him, but he had mentioned his girlfriend today. Just then Lila, with a shoulder bag, walked towards us from a distance. "Ah, is that the girlfriend he mentioned?" a police officer asked. They called her over to verify the victim's identity. Her face turned pale. After a moment of stunned silence, she covered her face and burst into tears. Seeing this, the police decided to take her to the station for further questioning. You're listening to the late night live stream on the YouTube channel Tran Tien Min. Surprisingly, Lila turned to me, her eyes red-rimmed, and quietly asked, "Can you come with me?" Her face was clearly distraught. "Yes, it's okay," I immediately replied. By the time the statement was done, it was past midnight. I sat on a chair in the police station, utterly bored. While waiting, I recalled the scene that afternoon. When Lila looked at the man's body, she had almost no expression. Only after a moment did she manage to appear sad. I shook my head, trying to shake off the random thoughts. The side effects of the antidepressant medication began to make me slowly drift off. I don't know how long passed, but I was awakened by Lila's soft voice. "Thank you for today." She was from Shandong. Although a little embarrassed since the police station was far from home, I called a taxi for both of us. On the way back, Lila said nothing, and I didn't dare to strike up a conversation, only sneaking a few glances at her. When the car arrived in front of the building, in the glow of the car's taillights, I saw her eyes were still red-rimmed, her face streaked with tears. For some reason, I mustered all my courage and took her hand. "It's okay, it's really okay." Lila didn't pull her hand away. Her hand was soft and cold. Upon reaching the 5th floor, she turned on her phone's flashlight to help me find my key. As soon as I opened the door, she walked inside. "Oh, why are you?" "I'm scared." In that moment, a strange feeling of pity welled up within me. I just wanted to protect her. "Then I'll stay with you." "Really, I'm not thinking of anything else." The space in front of her door was very narrow. We stood close together, the proximity making me a little tense. "Is this your first time?" Click. The door opened. Lila turned to look at me and smiled. "Yes, go on, of course." Her question made me a little flustered. She seemed to notice my awkwardness and smiled softly again, a beautiful and strangely intimate smile. Entering her room, I tried to act as if it was my first time there, looking around and praising. "Your room is decorated beautifully. Can I turn away? Are you changing?" "Yes, sure." I turned towards the window. Outside it was pitch black. "All right." Her voice was soft as the wind. I turned back and saw her wearing the white sheer dress, the exact style I liked. She was so dazzlingly beautiful it took my breath away. Do you want to watch a movie?" "Sure, it'll probably be hard to sleep tonight anyway." Okay, I'll go get the projector." With that, I almost ran back to my room, opened the door, and frantically searched for the projector. But strangely, I couldn't find it. Damn it, did I leave it under the bed? I knelt down, looked under the bed, and the sight before me made me slump to the floor, trembling uncontrollably. The man who had died that afternoon was now lying under my bed. He still wore his shattered black-rimmed glasses, his head twisted to one side, his eyes staring blankly at me, and his lips smeared with fresh red blood. I almost screamed, my entire body falling backward, hitting the chair hard. A sharp pain shot from my shoulder to my back. The pain gradually brought me back to my senses. No, it couldn't be. I saw the police and ambulance take his body away with my own eyes. How could he be here? I held my breath, slowly crawled closer, shining my phone's flashlight under the bed. Only then did I realize it was a sex doll. Pulled it out. When I lifted its shirt, I saw 2 words, "Criminal," written in red ink on its stomach. I flipped it over, and on its back was a grotesque smiley face with the words, "Satisfied," written below. My whole body trembled. Ooh, who could have done this? Who could have snuck into my room? I suddenly remembered that when he fell from the upper floor, I had rushed out and forgotten to lock my door. And right next to the main door was the electric meter box where the guy from the next room kept his odds and ends. That meant anyone could have entered my room. Or someone was still hiding in my room. In my chaotic state of mind, my phone vibrated again. It was a WeChat message from Lila. Are you still awake? I've been waiting for you. I was about to call the police, but just then there was a knock at the door. I opened the door a crack. Outside was Lila. I stood in the doorway, blocking her view of my room, preventing her from seeing everything inside. Her face was slightly red. What's wrong? You look tense. I was about to explain. I just had a little something to take care of. You're surely not going to refuse me tonight, are you? In her eyes, I clearly saw a fleeting disappointment. I turned to look at the sex doll I had just pulled out. It was staring at me with a strange, frozen smile on its face. I thought, if I called the police now, how would I explain the words written on its stomach? Especially with a death having just occurred today. What if I got implicated? Wait a moment for me, I'm just going to the toilet. I entered the bathroom, locked the door, and washed my face. Facing the mirror, I began to reconsider everything. Who knew I had snuck into Lila's room? Only the two housemates. I had barely seen the guy recently. I opened my phone and checked WeChat. It turned out he had just posted a picture with the caption, "Back home for a rest," accompanied by a sun emoji. He had gone home, so that left only the other girl living in the attic. I knew almost nothing about her. She was like an invisible presence. Every morning at 9 a.m., I'd hear hurried footsteps as she left for work. In the evenings, she usually wasn't back before 10 p.m., and she was almost never around on weekends, likely working overtime. Ordinary appearance, ordinary clothes, ordinary voice. But in this house, she was the most unfamiliar person. There was another possibility. The landlord or the agent could have installed cameras in the house. This was often discussed online. They held the keys and could enter and exit at any time. I subtly opened the toilet door and looked out. No one. Returning to my room, I did exactly what I'd learned online. Turned off the lights, turned on my phone flashlight, and started scanning common hidden camera spots like electrical outlets, heating pipes, and air conditioners, but I saw no reflective glare. I began to feel discouraged, waving my flashlight randomly around the room. And then, in the darkness, I saw a small red light reflecting back from the eyes of the sex doll. I turned on the light. Immediately, I took scissors and cut into the doll's silicone head. Sure enough, inside was a miniature camera. This meant that at this very moment someone might be watching me through that camera. Who, after all, had placed it under my bed? I hadn't looked under my bed for a very long time. I should have realized this sooner. Suddenly my phone vibrated. A chat message from Lila. Are you still there? I've been waiting for you for a long time. I hesitated. The doll situation wasn't resolved yet, but tonight with Lila might be my best chance to get closer to her. Perhaps I should go under the bed again. Coming right over. Before I went, I thought I should bring something for self-defense. I took an old item I had bought long ago and hid it in my pocket. I went upstairs and set up the projector. Before I could even sit down, Lila pointed to the beanbag chair. Sit here, sit close to me. Okay, I'll wait a moment for you. I'm going to get some scented candles. Lila lit a scented candle on the table, and warm golden light spread through the darkness. On the soft beanbag chair, I realized she was almost leaning against me. Her cool skin accidentally touched my hand, making my mind unable to focus on the movie playing. Coupled with the side effects of the antidepressant, drowsiness crept in. My head began to nod, my eyes blurred, and the scene around me also blurred with the flickering candlelight. And in the very moment before I completely drifted off to sleep, I saw a human head in the glass door of Lila's storage room. The head of that man. I forced my eyes open, rubbed them hard multiple times, but saw nothing clear. What's wrong? Lila asked. Nothing, I must have had a nightmare, I replied. Did you lock the door? Yes, I did. Thank you for sleeping with me. MHM. I tried to find a more comfortable position, resting my head on her arm. She didn't pull away. Very soon after I fell asleep. In my sleep I had a nightmare again, like sleep paralysis. My entire body suddenly jolted awake. I was in a place of dense darkness, almost unable to breathe. Worse, I vaguely heard someone talking. Is it okay to kill him? It's fine, we just killed that other guy, no suspicion yet. It was Lila. I tried to call out, but only stifled sobs escaped. Then, I distinctly felt a piece of cloth being shoved into my mouth. A rough, suffocating sensation so real it was hard to believe it was a dream. My eyelids felt heavy, my mind dizzy. It wasn't until I was a little more coherent that I realized I was looking at a large wooden board right above my head. My hands and feet were tightly bound, and lack of circulation caused my entire body to go numb. I was tied under Lila's bed. I tried to hit my head against the wood, trying to make a sound so someone would hear. Finally, Lila's face appeared before my eyes, her face cold, her gaze fixed on me, exactly as it was when she looked at the man's body. Then a familiar male voice echoed. Awake already? He's awake. Lila replied in a surprisingly cheerful, sweet and clear voice, just like when she said, I'm so scared just now. She disappeared from my sight, only her dangling feet visible at the edge of the bed. Another man bent down, with a square face and black-rimmed glasses, looking like a stern TV personality. I immediately recognized this face as the man in the photo on Lila's table. Oh, you're back in your favorite room, aren't you? I wanted to reply but couldn't make a sound. Do you like the gift I gave you? He took out his phone and showed it to me. The message screen clearly displayed all the threatening messages I had received earlier. They were all from him. So, how should we handle him? He asked. Lila, sitting on the bed, asked back in an unbelievably sweet, clear voice, just like when she said, I'm so scared just now. The safest bet is just to kill him. Tomorrow morning I'll go to his room, pretend to give him antidepressants, mix in some sleeping pills and stage it as a suicide. Then we'll make some more money and figure out what's next. Make money? Thought to myself. You've cornered me. How are you going to make money? Okay, we'll act again in a few days when things calm down. He nodded. I'm going to buy the medicine, he said. He left, leaving only Lila sitting on the bed, her legs swinging, as if she was perfectly accustomed to this kind of behavior. My eyes scanned around and finally, I spotted a phone placed on a stand against the wall at the foot of the bed. The camera was pointed directly at me. They were filming me. Was this some kind of live surveillance? I couldn't think anymore. The urgent thing now was to escape. I suddenly remembered I had a bottle of anesthetic in my pants pocket. But I wasn't sure if it was still there, and my hands were tied too tightly, with no room for strong movements. I knew I had to wait until the two of them were asleep to have a chance to act. The man hadn't returned yet. Lila still sat on the bed, almost motionless. The stressful waiting period made me utterly exhausted. Coupled with the side effects of the medication, I passed out. I was awakened by a sharp sound. The sound came from above the bed. I started, my whole body twitching, and turned my head to find that the phone placed in the corner of the wall had disappeared. About half an hour later, the sound stopped completely. The lights were off. Perhaps they had gone to sleep. In the darkness, I strained my eyes, looking at the bedboard above. I don't know how much time passed, but I finally reassured myself that the two of them were asleep and began to crawl out. I stretched my legs out a little first, then my body. I don't know how long it took, but I finally managed to crawl out from under the bed. The bedboard was no longer blocking me, and my chest was no longer pressed to suffocation. I could finally take a breath. I cautiously continued to crawl towards the door. Tape was very tight. Every time I moved, my wrists and ankles ached. When I was almost at the door, I was nearly exhausted. Just a little more. I tried to pull my legs a little further, then thump. A dull sound echoed, incredibly jarring in the middle of the night. I turned to see the phone that had been lying on the ground, its screen brightly lit. I almost dared not breathe. After a few minutes of no reaction, I finally dared to sit up. Looking up at the bed, I saw only Lila lying alone. What time was it? The guy from the next room still hadn't returned. The girl from the opposite room, whom I didn't know at all, was probably sound asleep. I thought of the phone and tried to get closer to it. When I was close enough to see the screen clearly, a chill ran down my spine. It was a live stream. Comments continuously appeared in the bottom left corner of the screen. Midnight check-in. Check-in 1. Check-in 1. Why is the screen so dark? G just kicked the phone down. Is G that guy? Last night's live was so stimulating. The girl is so beautiful. Yesterday was amazing. I wonder if G knows we're watching. Probably. This live stream is like a movie, even better than going to the cinema. Expensive but worth it. Work is tiring, watching this is truly relaxing. New streamer. Go easy on me. Reading those comments, I suddenly understood what had happened last night, why the phone disappeared, and why I felt like I was being watched. I was being live streamed. For the first time, I felt like an animal in a zoo, watched, commented on, and laughed at by a crowd of strangers who didn't care if I lived or died, only if they were entertained. It was past 3 a.m. My original plan was to bang on the door loudly to make noise, hoping someone would come to my rescue. But at that moment, I saw a knife stuck in the gap between the table and the wall. A glimmer of hope, like life re-emerging from despair, flared up. Perhaps I could use it to cut the tape. I carefully crawled forward, leaning my back against the table, and used my fingers to dislodge the knife. It was a fruit knife. I had seen it in Lila's room before. I knelt down and bent my legs. First, I used the knife to cut the tape on my ankles. Then I gripped the knife between my feet. It took a while to cut the tape on my wrists, and then I removed the cloth shoved in my mouth. I almost couldn't believe I had successfully freed myself. I held the knife and went to Lila's bed, intending to strike first, but just then, she turned over and looked directly at me. It was the second time in my life I had seen her this close, still as captivating as an illusion. My resolve weakened, and I lowered the knife. But in that instant, Lila opened her eyes wide. She immediately put a finger to her lips, signaling me to be quiet. I just wanted to leave this place and was about to turn and go, but Lila threw off the blanket. I saw her ankle was chained with an iron cuff attached to the bed frame. She whispered to me, "Please save me, hurry." I was about to leave when she held on to me. "It's useless for you to go. They forced me to do it. If I don't obey, they'll kill you and me too. If you go to the police station, do you think they'll believe you?" Saying that, she tilted her head and cried. I didn't intend to heed her, turning to walk straight out. "Please give me the key," her voice trembled. "Poor thing, where is it? They always keep it in the storage closet. Try looking there." I looked at her, her hands cuffed. No ability to attack, and the knife was still in my hand, so there was probably no danger. I nodded and walked towards the storage room. The storage room was behind a glass door, connected to the bedroom. I opened the door, couldn't find the light switch, and fumbled in the dark towards the wardrobe. It was full of miscellaneous things, cardboard boxes, suitcases stacked in the corner. I pushed past them, opened the wardrobe door, and saw a phone glowing, its camera pointed directly at my face. At that exact moment, a dark shadow quickly darted behind me. Immediately after, an intense pain shot through my neck. Passed out. I woke up. It was daytime. I was lying on the floor, my body once again tightly bound. The man sat on the bed, smiling at me, while Lila was half lying, half sitting, playing on her phone. She had her legs crossed, completely uncuffed. I struggled but couldn't make any sound. The man approached, squatted in front of me, and said with a laugh, "You know, you're the most successful actor in the entire live stream. All our loyal fans in the live room love watching you. Otherwise, I would have killed you long ago. From the first day you moved in, we've made a lot of money thanks to you. Last night you performed brilliantly, truly amazing. Just last night alone, we received hundreds of thousands in donations. I was even worried you'd find the knife. So, everything had been planned beforehand, the man said, adjusting his phone, then turned. Thanks, Feng Xie, for the RCK. What's next? Waiting for your instructions. Okay, no problem. He nodded. And I had no idea. On the other end of the screen, someone was deciding my fate. Then he dragged me into the storage room and locked me inside the wardrobe. My breathing became ragged. I couldn't breathe through my nose and was forced to gasp through my mouth. But gradually I felt like I was suffocating. In that moment, the past came flooding back. When I was a child, my mother left, and my father often brought strange women home. Each time he hated me being in the way, so he'd lock me in the wardrobe. If I dared to make any sound, I'd be beaten mercilessly. In the dark, cramped space, I was transported back to my younger self. I still remember clearly that every time I was locked in the wardrobe, the feeling of suffocation, claustrophobia, and no escape made me accustomed to holding my breath, not daring to cry out, not daring to ask for help. I had fainted several times from lack of oxygen. To feel a little more comfortable during the day, I had secretly carved a small hole in the wardrobe, just enough for a bit of light to shine in from outside. That time I was no longer so afraid. Thanks to that hole, I could even see what my father was doing outside. At first it was fear, then curiosity. Time in the darkness stretched endlessly. I could only silently watch him like a wild animal on that bed. Stalking, that was the only thing I could do, the only way I felt I was still alive. Thinking of this, I cried. I realized I had become even worse than my father. A piece of trash, repeating the very vicious cycle that had once trapped me. The antidepressant medication numbed me, but the desire to live still burned deep in my heart. I had to stay calm, I had to survive. I tried to focus on my breathing, feeling each inhale and exhale. I couldn't die yet. I repeated that to myself. My consciousness gradually returned. At that moment, I felt something hard under my thigh. I shifted my leg slightly and realized it was the bottle of anesthetic I had bought lying there. It must have fallen out of my pocket unnoticed during my struggles.